This is Dan King with DC by Foot. We're here trying to give you a virtual tour of the cherry blossoms, which are really nice this time of year, but while still trying to maintain some social distancing. So that's what we're here for. I'm standing 6 feet apart from everyone, and we're going to tell you some stories, tell you about the history of the cherry blossoms, and let you experience it all from the comfort of your home. Behind me is, of course, this beautiful Tidal Basin, which a lot of people wonder about. What the heck is the Tidal Basin? And the Tidal Basin was actually, well, the idea from it came from about the late 1800s. The Potomac River was getting exceptionally silted up, especially because of farmers out in Maryland. So they needed a way to flush Washington Channel, which is sort of a little part of the Potomac River. And they decided to basically build this tidal basin that would literally capture the water from high tide on the Potomac River. Potomac River, of course, is connected to the Chesapeake Bay, so it is tidal. It has high tides and low tides. And at low tide, that whole area behind me, up to and around where the Lincoln Memorial is today, was just a disgusting, swampy mess. So part of the plan was to extend the National Mall from the Washington Monument all the way down to where it is today at the Lincoln Memorial, and to create this basin, this tidal basin, to collect that extra water during high tide, and then use that to flush the Washington Channel at least twice a day with the extra water built up in there. Now, as they're building this, they didn't call it the Tidal Basin at first. It was actually going to be called Twinning Lake, after the Army Corps of Engineers general who was in charge of the project at that time. But it becomes known as the Tidal Basin because you can see the high tides and the low tides very dramatically here. Sometimes it can be about 6 feet off the water where it is today, actually flushing out some of these endangered cherry blossom trees, so that's not great either. But they complete the Tidal Basin, and at first it was actually a segregated beach. Right around the 1920s, Congress authorized monies to create a segregated beach. There was going to be another beach added for everyone else, but some senators decided to block that. And that actually became a controversy around the idea of planting these cherry blossom trees. Many people did not want to give up the cherry blossom trees that had been planted here in the 1920s when they were constructing the Jefferson Memorial, which is just sort of off to our right, your left over there. So they wanted the beauty of the cherry blossom trees around the tidal basin. If you ever visit Tokyo, Japan, or other places in Japan, cherry blossom trees are usually right on the water, and there's a beautiful sort of Zen Buddhist mythology around them, how they gracefully sort of dip their branches into the water, and the reflection of them is quite beautiful, especially with the petals dropping off into them. So that's why we wanted to have the cherry blossom trees all around here. The plan to block construction of the Jefferson Memorial obviously did not go through, but probably one of my favorite stories about the tidal basin and the cherry blossom trees are a group of well-to-do high society ladies. Is that what you would call them, Camden?
Definitely.
High society ladies, sort of here in their Sunday finery. They are outraged by this suggestion to rip up some cherry blossom trees to install this beautiful Jefferson Memorial. So they actually go through the effort of chaining themselves to the cherry blossom trees, basically daring the construction workers to forcibly remove them, which of course would be a terrible, terrible news cycle even back in the 1920s. So the construction foreman at the time was actually a pretty clever guy, and he decides to play nice with these very nice ladies, and basically continues to offer them snacks, offer them water, offer them tea as they're chained to these cherry blossom trees, and then continues to offer them water, offer them tea, make sure they're just okay. And then at some point, the sort of influx of water for these ladies, they needed to use the restroom, and they needed to unchain themselves in order to do that. So that is how the foreman sort of gracefully whisked them out of the way, and then obviously when they left did not allow them to return. And of course the Jefferson Memorial is built.
Hi, I'm Rebecca with Free Tours by Foot, standing amongst these beautiful cherry blossoms. And I want to talk about the real reason the cherry blossoms have come to Washington. Obviously, they are Japanese. They aren't native to this area. They are here thanks to our First Lady, Nellie Taft. Nellie Taft, before she was First Lady, her and her husband were vacationing in Japan, and they happened to be there during cherry blossom season. She fell in love with the beautiful blossoms because duh. And she decided when she wanted to bring some home, and when she was in a position to do so, she does her research as First Lady and determines that there are several varieties of cherry blossom that are ideal for the climate in Washington. And so she contacts the Japanese embassy and says, hey, we're friends, right? And of course the Japanese say, yes, of course we're friends. And then she says, well, friends give each other gifts, right? And so the Japanese say, oh, you'd like a gift. Would you like a kimono or maybe an ancient text? And Nellie Taft says, well, no. And then the Japanese say, well, would you like some of our cherry blossoms? And Nellie Taft thinks that's a great idea. And so in 1910, the Japanese send us over 1,500 cherry blossom saplings. But disaster strikes when they get before they get here. The saplings catch a disease. Trees get diseases too. And so they can't be planted. And in fact, we have to burn them. Otherwise, they'll infect trees in the DC area. Now, that is not what the newspapers report. What the newspapers report is that the Japanese give us this lovely gift and then we set it on fire. And so it's this big diplomatic incident. We have to smooth over feathers. Nellie Taft has to write a letter herself. And 2 years later, the Japanese send us over 3,000 saplings. They are disease-free and they are planted throughout Washington, D.C. And some of them remain here to this day.
So this is actually my favorite cherry blossom tree because of that. I feel like there should be something profound or symbolic I could say right now about this tree, and I don't know, it's no grass underneath it. Was it hit by lightning? It looks like it's been destroyed, but it has this one branch that is still flowering and I love it. So hopefully this will bring you guys a little beauty today.
Hi, it's Becca with Free Tours by Foot. I'm down here along the Tidal Basin among our beautiful Japanese cherry blossom trees. We're coming close to peak bloom, which I'm going to explain in a moment. I want you to notice though that beautiful stone lantern behind me. It's a Japanese stone lantern that was gifted to the United States from Tokyo in 1954, so sort of reaffirming our friendship after World War II. They chose this site for the placement of the lantern because here is where the original trees were planted in 1912. First Lady Helen Nellie Taft selected this location down along the water, saying that every spring it would be a beautiful sea of cherry when the trees bloom. So she planted the first tree very close to where that lantern is. Now let's talk a little bit about the cherry blossom and the bloom. This is something that's highly anticipated every year, but it's very hard to predict because Mother Nature is on her own schedule. So the way that we're able to sort of anticipate the bloom is to understand the stages. The first stage for the cherry blossoms is green bud. Green bud usually happens sometime in February, depending on the winter, but it's kind of the first sign of spring. It's exactly what it sounds like, green buds appearing on the branches. The second stage is floret visible. This is where we can start to see that little bit of pink or white peeking out, again, happening usually in February. Next is floret extension. Floret extension is really important. This is where the flowers start to extend out. They start getting longer, less like the round buds. This is also where if we have a frost, there might be a problem. It might slow the buds down. Next is everybody's favorite stage because it makes us chuckle, peduncle elongation. Peduncle elongation is when you've got that flower sticking out, but it hasn't opened yet. This is definitely can be a tricky stage because if we get frost or snow, it can actually ruin the bloom. The next stage is what we call puffy white. Even though these flowers sometimes have that tinge of pink, we call it puffy white because it means the flowers are open. What we're looking at right now is mostly puffy white. The final stage is peak bloom. What peak bloom means is that 70% of the Yoshino trees, the variety of cherry blossom most abundant here on the Tidal Basin, have reached that final stage. So right now on the day that we're recording this, we're a couple days shy of peak bloom. Most of the trees are in that final puffy white stage, but there's still a few that are waiting to open.
I'm very lucky. I happen to live within a walking distance of the Tidal Basin, so I decided to come down here to see what was going on. And as you can tell, beautiful trees. Lots, actually way too many people. So I'm actually going to tell you about one of my favorite places after the main thrust of these cherry blossom trees, those white ones in the distance. Those are the Yoshino cherry blossom trees, but as most DC tour guides and DC locals will tell you, they're not our favorite. We actually enjoy a different varietal. There's almost 70 varietals of these cherry blossom trees, and I'm standing in my favorite grove right now. These are the Kwanzan cherry blossom trees, and the nice thing about them is they come out when everyone is gone. See, no one's over here. I'm in a totally reasonable and socially appropriate distance given our present circumstance. But no one is here because these little guys have at least a few more weeks until they start coming out. But what's magical about these guys is when they do come out, they're nothing at all like those Yoshino cherry blossom trees. We'll see some more across the street there. They're nothing like those bright white pop blossoms there. In fact, some people will call these cotton candy trees. That's one of my favorite nicknames for them. They come out with bright pink, puffy petals, and they're really wonderful and really exciting to behold. So don't forget to send us your questions about these beautiful little trees, the cherry blossoms. We can tell you more stories, more history of them, answer anything really that you have, any questions about them at all. And remember that you can always support us, DC Tour Guides, at DC by Foot by maybe getting a gift certificate and coming out next year when we hope to show you these beauties in person.